very much for being with us this afternoon.
My pleasure.
Just so everybody knows, you are Sarah Breen.
I am.
You were co-author of the Aisling series of books here in Ireland, which I think a lot of us will know. And you're also from Burris.
Most importantly, I am a Carlovian. Proudly from Burris.
So thank you, as I say, for being here today. So really what we're talking about in this is a connection, I think is the main way, or the main theme of what we're trying to come across. We know that it's Valentine's Day about now, and we know that for a lot of people that can be difficult. So this isn't about the hearts and flowers of Valentine's. It's about relationships and about connections. So, and we have a focus, I suppose, on COVID and over the last 2 years, because that has been difficult for a lot of people. So how have you found COVID in the last 2 years?
I've actually escaped kind of okay. I have young kids, so I was living in kind of a lockdown existence before COVID ever happened. So originally, I kind of found the whole first lockdown quite exciting. We were having cocktail hour on Zoom with our friends, and I didn't have the FOMO that I would normally have, because some of my friends would be going to brunch or going to weekends away, and then suddenly everybody was living the same kind of life as I was. Now, of course, as the initial kind of excitement wore off and the lockdown got really boring, it wasn't so much fun. But unscathed is how I would describe my management of the whole thing.
Very good. And how did you find homeschooling then, when you talk about kids and having to...
Homeschooling was very challenging. So I have 3 kids. The eldest was in first class during the first lockdown. And I think that I spent the whole time kind of trying to protect them from the bigger stuff. Now, they're young enough in that they weren't worried about what was going on in the wider world, but just to kind of keep everything as undisturbed and as normal as possible. But the homeschooling was an absolute nightmare. At the very start of it, I was going to be captain teacher, headmistress of the house, and then I decided that I was just putting too much pressure on myself, and I decided then to do the bare minimum, and that made things much easier. And she's gone back to school since then, obviously, and caught up fine. Everything's fine. The teachers are doing Trojan work behind the scenes. But I think that not putting too much pressure on myself was what saved me in that department.
Yeah, no, it can be, and I think there has been a lot of pressure, and I think a lot of people have probably come around, I would hope, to what you've just described, which is, you know what, we can only do our best.
Yeah, and I think it depends on the school as well. Our school was very supportive. They were just like, listen, if you just keep the reading going, a little bit of maths, and then there's lots of stuff on YouTube and things that you can kind of plug them into if you need 5 minutes to yourself.
And do you think, as an author, that helped you in I suppose the isolation? Because and I could be totally wrong, but it always strikes me as there's a certain element of isolation in writing.
It is. It's kind of a hermity job.
Yeah.
And even though I have a co-author, Emer McLeish, we work together. How we operate is we flip a coin at the start of the book, decide who's going to do the first chapter, and then we figure out what's going to happen in the next few chapters. But then we go away and write individually. So it is a hermity existence. I do my work after the kids are in bed in the evenings. I sit at the kitchen table. I don't even have a desk. And I found it really nice to escape into a different world in the evenings. So in our latest book, Aisling in the City, which is out now, Aisling moves to New York. So in the evenings, I would close down the Seesaw app, make myself a cup of coffee, and just write about this kind of fantasy life in New York, and that really helped me.
Which is lovely. And speaking of Aisling, how do you think she would have coped? I know you've been asked this question before, but how would she cope with?
Yeah, people text us, people tweet us this question all the time. Aisling is somebody who is extremely sensible and loves rules. So, COVID brought us so many rules: stay 2 meters apart, all the rules, wash your hands, help your neighbours. So she would have thrived. She would have loved it.
You've just described Aisling. Is there, and I think, again, and I hope I'm not coming off topic on this, but I think there's a little bit of Aisling in a lot of us in that way. Would you think that is the case? Or
absolutely.
Is Aisling yourself?
No, as I get older, I would have, when we started writing the Aisling books, maybe, I think it's 5 years ago now, I would have described myself as maybe like 60% Aisling. But as I get older, I always thought I was a bit more like her Hainsey friend Magella, who's a bit of a mess. As I get older, I would say I'm 70 to 80% Aisling now. I love drying clothes on the clothesline. That's kind of my obsession. Like, it kills me to turn on the dryer, even though it's raining outside. And I enjoy the rules too. Rules control the fun.
That's true. Over the last couple of years in particular, have you had the opportunity to come down to Burris much, or have you been isolated somewhat in Dublin, away from family and friends?
One of the hardest things during lockdown was not being able to come down to Burris. Now, I am very lucky that 3 of my closest friends all live within 2 kilometres of me in Dublin. So we spent lockdown going for the poxy little walks, getting a takeaway coffee, doing laps at the Phoenix Park. But not being able to come down to Burris was really, really hard, particularly for my parents who really miss the grandkids. My kids are the only grandkids on both sides of the family. So, you know, we had to explain to everyone that we're doing this to protect the older people. So I was explaining this to the grandparents because they would have been, you know, trying to sneak up, and to the kids that, you know, it's all for the greater good. And then it made the reunions then all the sweeter when we were allowed to do it. But I did find it hard not coming down to Burris, because what I didn't like about Burris when I was younger is that it's very boring. Nothing happens there. Everyone knows your business. These are the things that I really enjoy about it now.
Yeah.
So I like to be able to come down, and the kids have this kind of free range existence where they're collecting eggs and they're running around trying to catch foxes. I can go for a walk along the Barrow, and it's just so quiet and peaceful.
Yeah, no, and I think that comes with age.
I do too.
Because I would have said the same thing. I know we're very close, Ballinkillen and Burris, and I would have how you've just described Burris is how I would have said Ballinkillen was.
And I'm so lucky that we can come down and enjoy it at the weekends when we need
That's
a little bit of respite from busy Dublin.
Yeah, I always said that when I had my boys, you know, I thought growing up I would never get out of Ballinkillen quick enough, and as soon as I had Owen, I thought I would never get back quick enough.
Yeah.
You know, being able to, now for us, we were lucky he was able to go to school in Ballinkillen and that. So that connection and that family connection,
yes,
I think has been very tough for a lot of people because we take it for granted.
Mm-hmm.
So we take for granted our family, our friends.
Especially when you live close to family. Like, it always surprises me when I come down to Burris and people are just walking into my parents' house constantly, because my aunts and uncles and friends of the family all live so close by. Yeah. Nobody texts before they arrive. Everyone just walks into everyone's house all the time. Yeah. So I think in the countryside, people found stopping that really, really difficult. And
because I've just recently moved back up to Dublin. So exactly that, the not just dropping over. Yeah. So you phone ahead to say that you're coming over to visit somebody, which goes somewhat against the grain in a way. But it's because it's the life. It's how you live your life, and you adapt accordingly. But I know for me, one of the things I would have said in back home or down home that was missing was that connection of the dropping in.
Yeah.
You, as you've just described with your own friends, I know I had very good friends that I was able to set up, you know, a corner in their kitchen, so that I came in a back door, sat in that one
You're
chair,
6 feet away, hand sanitizer at ready.
Absolutely. But it was a connection.
Yeah.
And you know, when the weather was good, we sat outside, but you know, we were able to adapt. And yes, it was maybe slightly breaking some of the rules as we went along. It wasn't really, because I think we were very careful about the timing of when that would have happened, but it meant that you connected.
Yeah. Do you know what's been really helpful for me, actually? WhatsApp.
Yeah.
So I'm in a WhatsApp group with my friends called COVID-19 Hysteria, and it's where there's a group of us, and anytime you're feeling stressed about anything, or you see a news report that freaks you out, you post it in there, and everyone calms everyone down. Yeah. And it's a place where you can post your negative antigen tests, you can post your positive antigen tests, and get your support in there. But WhatsApp is invaluable, because I am somebody who is vehemently opposed to phone calls. I just could not ever imagine ringing somebody, and I feel like when somebody rings me, they either want something immediately, or I'm often not in a position where I can talk because the house is too noisy, and sometimes I'm just not in the mood to talk. Whereas with WhatsApp, texting, you know, you don't demand an immediate response, and also I really enjoy voice notes. So you can have a voice conversation with a group of people, but everyone can listen to the voice notes and respond in their own time, and I think that's really helpful.
I'm now feeling considerably older than you, because I miss phone calls.
Yes, a lot of people do.
That's, you know, and that's where but in saying that, I do absolutely get the convenience and the ease of WhatsApp. I'm very bold sometimes, because I'll actually look and check, have they seen my
Oh God, I'm obsessed with that. Yeah.
Have they read it?
But it's really good for like group messaging in families or friend groups. Yeah. And also, if you want to just reach out to somebody and you don't need an immediate response from them, or maybe it's somebody that you haven't connected with in a long time, and it's kind of almost out of the blue. It's not the same as ringing them, because then they have to talk back to you.
Yeah.
And and it just allows them to reply in their own time.
And there have been, I mean, WhatsApp is one way of doing it, but I know
And it's free.
And it's free, which is fantastic. Zoom has been another fantastic way. I mean, even for us in the Carlow Mental Health Association, the fact that we've been able to have our meetings on Zoom has allowed us to keep going. You know, we're a voluntary organisation, so, you know, I would have worried that it might have just slipped further and further, but Zoom has allowed us to connect and to keep that the momentum going and adapt. I mean, we've all adapted incredibly well in the last 2 years, which is great. There are pluses, I suppose is what I'm trying to say to COVID. And
I absolutely hope that Zoom continues because Zoom has allowed me, you know, with small kids, I wouldn't socialise that often. I don't get to go to shows and things. But over lockdown, I was able to go to the theatre via Zoom. I was able to see friends that I wouldn't normally see so often via Zoom. Yeah. So that's one of the things that happened during COVID that I hope continues.
I had a friend that contacted me out of the blue like that. This was probably about 6 months into COVID, and he said he was literally had started it at A in his phone on his address book, and just was contacting everybody. He was going
just to check in and say hi.
Just check in and say hi.
That's really nice because. Sometimes I think, what kind of message would I like to receive?
Yeah.
And then just think, maybe I'll fire one of these out.
And that's exactly. So
and you don't know when somebody might be waiting or hoping
and
that they'll receive a message like that.
And that's because I know, again, for myself, it's very easy to slip into that isolation. I live on my own, so it would be so easy to just become the hermit and not bother. Whereas you do have to make a little bit of an effort sometimes to reach out and connect. And just because I'm in a good place or I'm comfortable where I am doesn't necessarily mean that the person that I'm maybe just sending off a message to isn't feeling the same way and might be actually needing that connection with somebody. Sure. But I thought it was a great way of doing it because you literally you start at A and you work your way through. And
you never know when somebody could be sitting there really needing and hoping to hear from somebody.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So, how do you think that your kids got on over the last couple of years? Or what age are your children actually?
My eldest is 8 and I've got a 5-year-old and a 2-year-old.
Okay.
So the 2-year-old is kind of, you know, very much in the thick of it. But as I said earlier, I don't think my kids are old enough to worry about the bigger picture. And the main thing was explaining to them why they couldn't see the grandparents, which was tricky for them. But I think that I had to reframe it in my mind that we were safe at home rather than stuck at home and just protect them from, you know, the news and all that kind of stuff and just sort of making things as normal as possible in the house.
Kids take their cues from their mum and dad all the time, and I always think if you're kind of calm enough about it and you know, don't
they're so resilient as well. Like they bounce back, and you know, they think so much is normal to them now. Like my 5-year-old is just, she wouldn't walk into the house and not sanitize her hand. It's not a big deal to her. It's just, you know, how she operates. And my 8-year-old, when she went back to school, you know, she had a little bit of anxiety going back just because she hadn't seen people in so long. But then the day I picked her up, I just remembered it was so nice to hear the chat of like, this person did this and this person did that. And, you know, they were so sensitive in school about the pods and stuff. They didn't make it too rigid. So she was fine. After a week, she'd caught up on everything. And, you know, the little ones were so small, you know, they just kind of roll with the punches. Yeah.
And were there any complaints about the cold classrooms? That's one of the things, that's the only complaint that I've heard from my nieces and nephews.
Yes. The classrooms are cold, but you know what? They do these long sleeve thermal vests at Marks and Spencer. Yeah. And again, you know, kids they're resilient. You know, they complain in 1 minute and then the next minute they're grand.
Well, one of my nephews goes into school in t-shirt and shorts.
I see this all the time. They don't feel the cold.
No. And it's a sister that was giving out. She bunched up into a big coat, and I'm there go, but you come from the same house.
Yeah, you see, sometimes you have to take everything with a pinch of salt.
And that's it. And absolutely. I'm going to finish off with another Aisling question.
Go on.
I suppose in terms of where we're at in Ireland at the moment, because Aisling is now living in America, isn't she?
Yes, in the most recent book she moves to New York and she kind of makes a new life for herself.
So what do you think she'd make of the reopening at the moment? What would be the first place that she would want to go out to socialise in?
I think she would look forward to maybe a night out in Coppers. Now, she would still be very cautious about things.
Yes.
I don't think she'd be going shifting anyone.
Okay.
And I think she'd have her mask on for the most part. But I think she would be looking forward to having a good dance with her friends.
Fair enough. Sarah, thank you so much.
Thank
It's
you.
been lovely to chat to you, and we'll look forward to the next Ashley books.